What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. Very happy to be here with you on a Sunday afternoon for another Q&A live stream. We are going to be answering. We're going to be talking about FPV, answering questions, answering your questions from the chat. Here's how it works. Here's how it works. Your questions come in. Blunty queues them up here. Blunty queues them up. And I answer them. That's it. That's it. That's how it is. That's how we're gonna do it. Oh, that's not the right. Oh my God, such an amateur. There we go. Hello, everybody. Yeah. I don't know. Just feel like diving right into it. We'll dive right. I tell you what. I'm gonna dive right into it with this question real quick. Because people pay a lot. There's a small number of people who are very interested in my keyboard, and somebody asks why is my keyboard not purple? My keyboard, the color scheme of my keyboard, I don't know. Either you know or you don't, right? Okay. Enough said. No, it's not Swedish, exiled. Oh my gosh. Wow. There you go. Minions, good guess. Yeah, it's the Minions. That's it. That's what it is. You got it. Minions. All right. Let's see here. Let's start taking some questions. Blunty, we got questions queued up?
Yes.
We got like 8 queued up already. So that's how we're going to do it. Here we go. Spook Zood says, I'm going to fly in an hour. How do I not get scared when people are watching? Frankly, it depends a lot on who the people are. If the people are other FPV pilots, then, you just got to get over yourself, right? But if the people are not FPV pilots, I get nervous because I worry that I'm going to, create a safety issue, or they're going to create a safety issue, and then something bad's going to happen. Honestly, picture them naked. I don't know what to tell you, man. I would say that as long as I'm not creating a safety issue, then there's little to be nervous about. I will do riskier things when I'm alone and no one's watching, right? Because, if I crash my drone and I, break something, and then I go, oh, okay. And then I kind of, just slink away quietly. That's different than if I crash my drone in front. Let's say I was to, this has never happened, but let's say I was to, crash and damage a car, in a parking lot. Well, I would do the right thing. I would, leave my information and make it right with the insurance or, whatever. But I would be like, shit, well, it's going to cost me some money. But if I crash my drone into a car in front of a crowd of people, see how that's worse? Now they think now I'm setting a bad example. So, I kind of dial it in a little bit with the risks that I'm willing to take when I'm in front of people, because I don't want to set a bad example. But, other than that, you gotta just get over yourself, right? You just gotta get over yourself. I don't know. What are you worried about, I guess is the question. If you're scared about flying in front of other pilots, you might just be worried about looking like a bozo. My opinion is that as long as you haven't created a safety issue, then there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Everybody's at their own level. Some people are better pilots than others. If there's tricks you can't do, or if you're flying really slowly when other people are flying fast, that's just, that's just life. And some people, you deserve to be there just as much as anybody else. As long as you're not powering up on people's video channel or knocking people out of the air or doing other sort of bozo things like that, that's what I would be nervous about, and I would try to avoid as much as possible. Okay. James Landreth asks, how can I get my battery voltage to work on my OSD? It shows 11.8 volts. James Landreth, I'm going to guess that you're powering your flight controller from a 12-volt regulator. So you've got a 12-volt regulator feeding power into the VBAT pad on the flight controller. So the flight controller thinks that VBAT is 12 volts. The most likely reason you're doing this is because you're doing like an 8S or a 12S build. Right? That's when I've encountered this in the past. So if you're not doing like an 8S or a 12S build, if you're 6S or below, then probably you've wired it wrong. You need to be powering the flight controller from VBAT instead of from a regulator. So check your wiring. But if you're doing an 8S or a 12S build, the workaround is... So you can't power it off of VBAT because it'll fry the flight controller. So the workaround is to go to the power and battery tab. And in the power and battery tab, you'll change your voltage meter source. You'll change your voltage meter source to ESC sensor. Now, this presumes that you have an ESC that supports BLHeli telemetry. So in your ports tab, you should have a sensor. You can't see this, damn. 1 second. In your ports tab, one of your UARTs should have sensor input ESC. And that means you're using BLHeli telemetry. And when you do that, then you can go to the power and battery tab and set the voltage source as ESC sensor, and then you get your battery voltage direct from the ESC, and that's how you get your battery voltage working when you're powering the flight controller from a regulator. If you are using a flight controller or an ESC that doesn't support BLHeli telemetry, or some ESCs support BLHeli telemetry technically, but then they don't report battery voltage, which is freaking stupid. No one should do that. But I would not use those on like an 8S or 12S build, because otherwise there's just no way to get your battery voltage. I say that. Technically, hello, come here. Technically, some flight controllers do have a workaround. So I happen to know that this flight controller has a workaround. This is the Maytech H743 Slim. Hello, Maytech, load your page. And if we look at the Maytech oh my God. What the hell, Maytech? Oh, wow, internet's so slow right now. I blame China. Come on, give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me. If we look, there should be a... Yeah. I can't remember the documentation. I believe that the VBAT2 input, it's right here. It's labeled VBAT2. If I remember right, this is rated for up to like 60 volts. And you can feed VBAT2 into the Maytech H743 Slim, so you're powering it off of 12 volts on VBAT1, but you're feeding battery voltage 60 volts or 40 volts or whatever into VBAT2, and you can do the voltage sense that way. That's very rare. Most flight controllers don't have that. There you go. Also, if you say in your OSD you see 11.8 volts, if you mean the Betaflight OSD, then everything I said just now applies. But also, the Walksnail and the DJI goggles will show the supply voltage for the video. Oh no, DJI only shows the flight controller VBAT voltage. Walksnail, I think, can show the supply voltage to the VTX, which may be 12 volts. All right. Anyway. Hopefully that was helpful information. Let's see here. Jakey Boy wants to know, I tiny whoop, but I also want to get into some 3.5-inch cinematic stuff. Should I get HD0, Walksnail, or DJI? Most of the people running like cinematic stuff are using DJI. The advantage of DJI is exceptionally good range and penetration and 4K onboard recording with quite good image quality. Technically, the Walksnail Moonlight also ticks those boxes, but it's not as popular as DJI in the sort of cinematic market. The increased latency of DJI compared to HD0 is not really a big deal because cinematic flying is usually slow and smooth. And the increased penetration of Walksnail and DJI is a big plus when doing cinematic stuff compared to HD0. So I would say for cinematic 3.5 inch, 3.5 inch is big enough to carry a Walksnail or DJI VTX without worrying about the weight, and the additional latency of HD0 isn't really an appeal there. I would say pick Walksnail or DJI depending on which of those seems the best to you, and go with that. Wes Magyar wants to know, how bad is the range loss using the Goggles 2 with the stock antennas with a Vista? I'm planning on getting the RPSMA adapter for it, but I was wondering if I should just hold off on updating my Vistas to work with the G2 until I get the adapter and just keep using my V2s with the Vista. The difference in range between the G2 with stock antennas compared to the Vista. I see. So you're going to keep the Vista, but you're switching from the V2 goggles to the G2 goggles. Well, I'm going to guess on your V2s that you have aftermarket antennas, because most people do. And that means you're going from a patch antenna with like 5 or 7 dB of gain to an Omni antenna with like 2 dB of gain. So you're losing maybe 3 dB of gain there. And in addition, the antennas on the Vista are circular polarized. The antennas on the G2 are linear polarized. So you're losing maybe 3 dB of gain there. That's approximately 6 dB of gain. And that conveniently works out to about half the range. I want you to realize that that is a very, very rough number, and reality obviously will have some variance. But if I had to ballpark it, I'd say roughly half the range. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Vista, its output power, its behavior changes when you flash it to firmware to let it work with the G2. And I believe people are seeing reduced range with the Vista. Or is that the O3? Blunty, is this ringing a bell to you? If not, then so be it. I think we talked about something like this recently. The Vista having different range when used with the V2 versus the G2.
A little bit, but I don't know anything about the reason for it or changes or anything like that.
Are you remembering that the Vista
yes,
has
the Vista
less
has
range?
less range and penetration on the G2 than the V2, but I don't know why or how or what that reasoning is.
So it's very difficult to do like an apples to apples where the antenna are removed from the equation. So it certainly could just be the antennas. I think you'll have less range moving your Vistas to the G2, and that seems to be consistent with most people's experience, though. Okay. In just a minute, we're going to start doing our super chats. We've had some super chats coming in. If you want to get your super chat queued up, head on over. What? Isn't that interesting? Head on over to the chat and hit the $ down here at the bottom. Leave a super chat. I'll do a block of super chats in just a few minutes, but we'll take a few more of the free questions until then. Norman Childs is trying to program an Omni F4 Pro V2 with Cleanflight. I have a Windows 11 laptop. Is Windows 11 my problem? No, Cleanflight is your problem. I'm not sure what the status is of the Cleanflight configurator or the Cleanflight firmware. I honestly don't know. But my question would be why you're using Cleanflight. If it's an F4, then I would, I think it should be supported by Betaflight. As I don't know if Cleanflight is even really continually being developed or maintained. Like, if it is, it's like I don't know why you're not using Betaflight. No, Windows 11 I don't think is your problem. I'm not really sure what's going wrong, though, so it's hard to judge. How common is vortex ring state in FPV drones? eCalc warns me about it whenever I put a high pitch propeller. I think that vortex ring state might relate in some ways to the prop wash oscillation that you get when you descend straight down. But my understanding is that vortex ring state is a much bigger deal with larger props, and that it is a almost negligible. Like the idea, like with a big helicopter, if you get into a vortex ring state, then the helicopter just falls out of the air, and it's like if you don't correctly respond, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to, I believe, pitch forward and fly out of it. If you don't correctly respond, then you're out. You're going to crash. With a FPV drone, I've never seen one that you couldn't just power out of a descent no matter what. Maybe it's because they have such insane power to weight ratio, So I wouldn't worry about vortex ring state on FPV drones unless you're flying very big ones. But yeah, you just pitch forward and fly out of it, I believe is what you're supposed to do. That's a good thing to do because prop wash oscillation makes your footage look like shit. So, it's even if it's not going to like literally crash you into the ground. Wes Magyar, yes. If you flash the firmware to the version that works with the G2, you can flash back if you don't like it. That is true. What's the best practice mode in the simulator? Nonstop says. Nonstop, when I'm practicing in the sim, I like infinite race. I hate it. Like, if you do a standard race in the simulator, then you'll do like 3 laps and be done. And that's okay if you're trying to like race for time and put pressure on yourself. But when I'm trying to improve, I usually want infinite race. So like I hate when I'm getting a groove going and then it says, okay, the race is over. You did 3 laps. I'm like, I was just starting to get good. So I like infinite race so I can keep going and keep trying to improve until I crash and have to reset. What's your opinion on the Lumineer 2407 motors? Are they any good? Yeah, they're okay. They're okay motors. Lumineer Zip 2407. Here we go. Let me find a product page. So the thing is, out of stock. Although in stock yeah. The thing is, like it's a $26 motor, and I'm not sure. I feel like it's like I'm not. I think maybe you can do better for $26. Like for example, do you see here they don't have single strand windings? Right, that's a cost saving measure. It's not a Unibel. That's a cost-saving measure. It's not a bad motor. I think probably you can do better for $25, $26 though. I think main reason you don't see a lot of talk about these motors is that 2407 is a little bit of an oddball size. Like it's a little too big for 5-inch, but it's a little too small for 7-inch. Spicy Dot says, I just recently saw you a 2023 build guide with everything you need. They're from 10 months ago. Is there not a 2024 version dropping? So no, that 2023 guide is up to date. I actually was just thinking I should just remove the date from it or change it. See, the thing is, it's still 100% up to date, even though it's like 10 months old. Because like in the beginner world, shit doesn't change that fast. Like no, like it's made for beta flight 4.5. It's good to go. So, like, should we update it even though nothing has changed just to put a new date on it? No, we just keep selling it, right? And I thought maybe I should just change the date to 2024, but then people would think it was a new guide and maybe be misled, and I don't want that. No, it's fine. We have no plans to update it until there is a compelling reason to do so. How long do you keep lipos fully charged, and when do you worry about leaving them charged too long? The internet says all kinds of things. Okay, here's what I want you to think about. Every time a battery is at a high voltage or low voltage, it is slowly taking damage. Okay? When it's at 3.8 volts storage voltage, it's essentially inert and can stay at that voltage essentially forever and not degrade in any way, more or less. But when you charge the battery up to 4.2 volts and leave it there, it slowly sort of wears out. Think of it like a spring, and if we were to take a spring and compress the spring and just leave it compressed forever, eventually it would kind of lose tension, right? A battery is sort of like that. There are chemical changes inside the cell that happen, and those chemical changes increase the internal resistance of the battery, is the gist of it. They make the battery have more voltage sag and less ability to deliver current. In a way, it's just cumulative. Like, let's say that you have a total of 20 hours of time at full charge. No, that's too small. I was trying to make up a number. Many people leave their batteries full charge for 20 hours. Let's say that you have a total of 30 days. That's more realistic. If you leave your battery fully charged for 30 days, at the end of that time, it will have degraded so much that its performance is unacceptable. Now, that 30 days could be all at once. You could fully charge it, leave it charged for a month, and now it's ruined. Or it could be one day at a time. You fully charge it, you leave it overnight, you go out and fly it, that's a half a day. And over the life of the battery, the point is that there is this bank of time where once that bank is used up, the battery is degraded to a point where its performance is no longer acceptable. And so there is no straight answer. Can you leave your batteries charged for one day? Yes. Would it be better if they were at storage voltage and you charged them up right before you went to fly? Yes. Well, that's not convenient. Okay. It'd be better if I brushed my teeth every morning and every night. Well, that's not convenient. So I don't. Right? And then my dentist is like, you should brush your teeth. And I'm like, So, like, there's always trade-offs that we make. That's the point. Like, I would say a couple days. After a couple days, you might as well just put them at storage. But I've had batteries that I left for a week and was like, oh, crap, those are still charged up. And then they're, the other thing is the harder you hit your batteries, the more you're going to notice. Like, if you don't hit your batteries very hard, then that degradation in performance, you're going to see a little bit more voltage sag, but you're not going to notice. If you're a racer who's like full throttle all the time, you're going to notice you need to be more careful and you're going to notice much more quickly. Okay, let's get some super chats. We got about 5 or 7 super chats. We're going to do a big block of super chats. And if you guys leave a super chat right now, it will get answered almost immediately. Betaflight 4.5 Alt OSD flashes red at 100 feet. How to change to, say, 350. Thank you for a $5 super chat from Adameg. Believe it's... I think I know where that is. That's going to be in the OSD tab over here on the right. And that's going to be the altitude limit right here. Under alarms, altitude, you change that number. And that's where you change it. Altitude. Currently it's 100. You want to change that to 350. Easy peasy. Alexi F, thank you for 40,000 COP. Thank you for the iNav video, says Alexi. There's a missing part. How do you make your mag working? Your C7 has a 6-pin cable out of GPS. Mine has 4 and mag is not working. Did you replace your cable or iFlight started to save on cables? Alexi, I added those 2 pins into the cable. I don't know if I put that in the video. I know I mentioned it, but I don't know if I showed it. I have some JST pre-pinned cables. I stuck them in the housing. It's kind of dumb that they don't include it. I wish they did, especially on the Chimera, which is going to absolutely be set up to run iNav. They should really include it. James Moran, thanks for the email reply today about my quad death spin. I spoke to SpeedyBee. They determined it to be gyro issue from black box logs. I replaced the flight controller and it's fixed. Oh, well, that's interesting. Usually death spins are a motor or ESC, not a... Oh, but, I mean, if they replaced it, then more power to them. Thank you for 10 pounds. What's the most sick combo? I think it's to have the flu and COVID at the same time would be the sickest combo. Thank you for a $2 super chat. I have no idea what you're asking. What's the most sick combo? I don't really know. Thank you for your super chat. Happy Model EP1 keeps going into bootloader mode, says Serene State of Being. There is a thing that can happen with some flight controllers where the UART pulls the receiver into bootloader mode. Is that this fix? Yes. Manufacturer successors will usually have a pull-down resistor to aid with S-Bus inversion. This will result in solid LEDs on ESP base. It's best to avoid. So you could just move to a different UART. But if moving to a different UART isn't an example, I think you can do... Yeah, what you can do is wire a pull-up resistor like this. Okay? All right? So screenshot this, okay? Or go to the same page I'm on. It's the Express LRS receiver wiring page, and they're talking about that. Either move to a different resistor or solder a pull-up resistor as shown in this diagram.
Also, just to be clear, that's if you're on a UART and you unhook from the UART and then turn on the receiver and it's no longer in bootloader.
No, he's saying Yeah. That's right. I mean, I'm assuming that the receiver bootloader button isn't broken. That's true. I guess the first step, that's a good point, Plenty. So the first step is disconnect the TX and RX lines and power up and see if the receiver still goes into bootloader. If the receiver still goes into bootloader, then there's a problem with the bootloader button on the receiver. It's broken and it's pressed. On the other hand, if disconnecting the TX and RX lines makes the receiver work correctly, it means that you have this problem and a pull-up, either move to a different UART or get a pull-up resistor.
Just to tell you why I bring that up is because specifically the EP1s and similar, the boot pad is right next to the ground pad and you can accidentally solder across them. So it's it's not a broken
that's smart.
boot, it's an actual accidental solder bridge.
Because there's no button, but you could accidentally solder bridge it. That's really smart, yeah. So let's just make sure the chat, in case the chat doesn't intimately know what a Happy Model receiver looks like. On the Happy Model receiver, right here, come on, big picture. Oh my God, I just opened image in new tab. Oh, things always work exactly like my brain wants them to immediately. So on the Happy Model receiver, there isn't a bootloader button. You put the receiver in bootloader mode by solder bridging or just use tweezers or wire by connecting this pad to this pad. And if when you're soldering up ground, you accidentally bridge those pads, your receiver will go into bootloader, and the answer is to clear that bridge. So yeah, that would probably be the first thing to check. Well done. Gregor D, continuing the super chat bonanza. Gregor D says, I am and train pure because I see a great career in his future as a drone racing pilot, but he behaves like a little kid. What are some tips to make him grow up more and focus on his career? Oh, I don't know if I understand this question. Sorry, I should.
It sounds like he has a kid who's big in drone racing. I believe the kid's name is Pure, the drone racing handle. That's what I'm getting from this.
That's how I read it. What is GYSI?
I think that's his pilot handle.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. I don't know if I'm the right guy to answer this one. Like, I'm not a tiger parent. If I had a kid who was interested in drone racing or anything like today, my son, my 13-year-old son came downstairs and he was like, I want to get into game development. I was like, oh, that's really cool. What kind of games do you think you're going to develop? He said, well, I think I'm going to start with Roblox because there's a lot of good tutorials. I was like, that's really cool. Can I help you with that? Do you need me to like help you look up tutorials, or, you know, are there any like, get your computer set up with some program to help you do the, and he's like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to watch some tutorials. And I'm like, cool, man. I can't wait to see what you come up with. That was the extent of it. And if tomorrow he's like, nah, I'm not doing that anymore, I'll be like, cool, what are you doing today? My theory is that if I had something I wanted my kid to be into, then I would say I would do it around him. I would invite him to do it with me. I would try to make that as appealing as possible, but I wouldn't like pressure him to do it or guilt him if he didn't want to do it as much as I wanted him to do it. Because that's not my, like, how weird would it be if he was like, hey, Dad, when did you last practice your Matty flips? And I'd be like, well, I've been really busy with work, son. He's like, yeah, I haven't seen you out there. I need you to be doing 30 packs a week. And you're only up to like 6 this week. And I don't know how you're ever going to succeed in your career if you're not out there grinding. Right? And I don't think that as a parent, like sometimes there's times when as a parent you need to be a little bit more forceful, with your kids. Like when we took him, some of his early doctor visits when he was like 5 years old, he had to get some shots and he didn't want to get the shots. And it was a real freaking tribulation. And ultimately we ended up holding him down and giving him the damn shots. Because we were like, look, we're all about, negotiation and trying to get consent, but ultimately we're just doing this today and that's that. So like there are times, but like I don't feel like I want you to be a drone racing pilot. I think you could be really good, so I'm going to like, try to get you to do that. Like I don't know. I just don't really resonate with this. If he's behaving like a kid, if I were in your situation, I would try to make it more appealing. I'd be like, what is, like, my kid will go do just about anything if I invite him to do it with me. So, like, if I look back on my choices as a parent and I go, damn, my kid could have been a football player or in the chess club. Wow. The reason that I didn't, then why didn't I say, hey, I'm going to play chess. Do you want to play chess with me? Instead of being like, I'm going to do something else. Not because I was like, you need to grow up and focus on your career. Who fucking knows what his career is going to be? Nobody knows. You don't know. Anyway, I don't know, man.
I also think that, there's two things I'll say. I don't have kids, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, okay? But I obviously was a kid. We all have had parents, and we've been through childhood, okay? Mm-hmm. Number one, I don't know many older people who wouldn't be happy to go back to being a kid for a while so they don't have to worry about all the responsibilities and not worry about driving their career forward and paying all their bills and all those things. Yeah. So, like, taking that away from your child faster seems like a bad idea to me. Yep. The other thing I'll say is that, as Joshua said, you have no idea what your kid's career is going to be. And career isn't what life is all about, even though that might be for you. It's not for everybody. So you shouldn't ruin your child's life or his childhood to push him into something that he may not even be and may not even benefit him and may not even be something he enjoys doing.
Yeah.
It's like, it just seems hasty in you wanting him to be something versus him wanting to be something, right? So.
Yeah. And how many people who are adults reached adulthood and emancipation with a skill, like their parents, pressured them to play chess or play piano or whatever, and then by 25 they haven't done it because they don't actually enjoy it, or maybe the joy of it was killed by the forced practicing, and they're like, oh yeah, when I was a kid I used to be really good at piano. I don't know. There are also plenty of people out there whose parents, they loved gymnastics and their parents did gymnastics, took them to gymnastics. Their parents, they grow up and they're like, that was a great thing for me. So obviously every kid is different, but you saying you have a little kid and he behaves like a little kid, what are some tips to make him not be a little kid? And it's like, sorry, you're not going to get me to buy into that one. Let him be a kid. Have fun with him. I have a feeling, and I can't speak for you, but I have a feeling that when you are coming to the end of your life and you look back on your choices as a parent, you would rather say, man, we had some good times together, me and my kid, rather than I was stressing out because I wanted him to grind and he was stressed out because I was making him grind. And that's how we spent the one childhood we have together, which is not really that fucking long if you think about it. So, I don't know. That's my take. Mike Myers. Oh, Mike, I loved your movies. Mike Myers, thank you for a $5 super chat. Once I install Remote ID and register with the FAA, how do I get approved flights from the FAA? What kind of approval do you want, Mike? There are places where you're allowed to fly without approval. There are very few places maybe there's some places where you have to go into an app and get Lance approval. Is that what you're asking about? Mike, I want to be clear that you know that most places you go, you don't need any explicit approval. You just fly. What I would say is there is an app. The app is called UAS Sidekick. Let me put it up on stream. UAS Sidekick. This is an app you can get for your phone. Where's the damn app? Okay, I just want to see the app. Is this an online version of the app? That would be kind of cool. So this app, oh look, there is an online version of app. That's kind of cool. This is an Android app you can get as well. Hello, there we go. And basically what you do is you look at your location and it tells you whether you're allowed to fly there. So for example, at this location, I don't know where this is. This is just some generic location they've popped up on. You see this 0 right here? That means that the ceiling in this location is 0 feet. And if you're in this location, you're not allowed to fly. Here, there's a 300-foot ceiling. Here, there's a 400-foot ceiling. So the first thing you do is you respect that ceiling, right? And there's more to it than that. We're not going to go into all the details. But most of the time in America, you're going to be here, and there's going to be no ceiling. And that's effectively a 400-foot ceiling because, Rick, you can't go above 400 feet legally. But you don't need any permission to fly. And there may be places where you can file for Lance approval, LAANC, Lance approval. In which case, once you file and get approval, you can fly. But most places, you don't need any particular permission to fly. You just, where the hell am I? Where am I? Peachtree City? This is South Carolina, Georgia, Greenville, Tennessee. There. Oh, I see. It's cocked sideways. Yeah, here we go. So, yeah. Here's the Knoxville International Airport, this space. And if I just click right here, we can see how do I see the actual, oh, it's filling in. Yeah. How do I see the whether I can fly? Huh. On the app, there's a little box that pops up that shows, you know. But I click here. Oh, there we go. I touch the point and map touch point. Drop before you fly pin. There we go. Once I drop the pin, now it's going to show me like if I can fly in that area, and it checks that pin and all airspace 2 nautical miles from the pin drop. So basically you're going to use this app to check whether you can fly in an area, and if it says you can fly, you're good to go. Where the hell, I can never remember. Where is it that you get Lance approval? Because if you're in Class G airspace, you just fly. And then if you're like Class A and B airspace, like you're not going to get any approval, right? Where is it you can get Lance approval and then fly? Is it Class D? Can't fucking remember. Do you know?
I'm not the right person to ask. Nope.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hoped maybe someone would know. Anyway, I just look at the app.
I agree. Just check the app.
Yeah.
Check the app.
So, and the app, look, check it out. So, look, it says here, auto approval available up to 100 feet, go to Lance. So, at this location, which is like right across the frickin' street from Knoxville International Airport, it's at a country club. At this location, I can fly up to 100 feet if I get Lance approval. But only in this grid square. I have to stay in this grid square. So there you go. So basically, download this app, look at what the app says for the location you're at, and then do whatever it says. And then that's how you know you're legal. All right. I didn't know that was a web app. That's very cool. Super chat for $5 from Brandon A. Cree. Any suggestion or replacement for S bind and fly AIOs? I have 2 GEP-RC quads in need of boards, and there are tons of options. I get bad analysis paralysis. Oof. Man, I have to tell you, I think the GEP-RC bind and fly AIOs are actually pretty good. Now, yours are dead, so maybe you don't want to go with those. I guess Flywoo makes one that looks okay. I don't have a lot of test data on which are good. I've had good results with the GEP-RC bind and flies, though. When they die, it's seldom a flight controller that kills them, so I would probably just go back to that. Joshua Tree FPV says, "Bummer, paid service." Does he mean the US Sidekick app? I don't think so. It's free. I've never paid to use it. I would just stick with what the factory shipped you, Brandon, especially because you say it was your fault both times. Nicholas Ciora, thank you for a €2 super chat. Nicholas wants me to check a video. Oof. I don't know how I'm going to do that. What video is it that you want to look at, Nicholas? I don't know how I can find your message from way, way, way back when. No, I can't. It's the last video in your channel, but oh my goodness.
You can now click on the user and click go to channel. That used to be a thing. Yeah.
Oh, but I don't want to. Okay, we'll go to Nicholas Ciora's channel. What am I doing with this video? What's wrong? He asks. No views. Okay, no audio there. All right. Oh, what happened? Oh, that's interesting. Well, we're crashing, that's for sure. So you've got a camera problem. Okay? Like I can see here that your OSD, I can just barely see your OSD. I can see the horizon moving. Your camera has screwed up. This is not a video transmitter. This is not a flight controller. This is a camera problem. maybe a VTX problem. My gut would be on the camera. First thing I would do, there, it's back once it hits the ground. First thing I would do is check the MIPI cable between the camera and the VTX. I would reseat that at both ends, and I would inspect it for any sign of damage. I might even just replace it on principle. Basically, there's the only way to solve this. If it's a hardware problem, the only way to solve it is to just start swapping parts and see what fixes it. There isn't really unless you can inspect and find physical damage, but oftentimes you can't. But this is a camera or can't, because like nothing else would cause the image to go dark in that exact way other than a camera problem. I think the cable would be my first thing I would check. If the camera, why is it also affecting the OSD? Asks Eric Ashner. Well, that's interesting. That's a good question. So here it looks like it completely powers down and is gone. I still think it could be a camera problem because the OSD is just manipulating the Luma signal in the camera. And if the camera fucked up the signal going into the OSD, I still think it could cause this. But I'm sorry, I said MIPI. This is analog. I got, I don't know, this picture just looked so good I thought it was HD0. So there's no MIPI cable. I still would inspect the cable, though, the video cable going from the camera to the VTX. Apologies for getting that wrong. Yeah. I still think it's a camera signal issue, even though it affects the OSD. You can see OSD without a camera. That's right. You can. If there's no signal at all, then the OSD will work. But if there's a messed up signal coming from the camera, it can mess everything up. James Reedy suggesting that it's a 2S camera on a 5-volt pad. I don't think there's very many cameras that don't go down to 5 volts. Do you think Flipster FPV is Skibbity Sigma or not? Thank you for 129 check. Karuna asks QDO. Flipster FPV is the Sigma Rizzler. There is no doubt. The Mostest Gyat Ohio Skibbity Sigma. No doubt. Lieutenant, thank you for a $7 super chat. On your QAVS2 kit, there's a GoPro mount on the frame, although I'm pretty sure I remember you saying having those on it wasn't a good idea. Personally, I don't like that style of mount that connects to the like nipples on the bottom of the GoPro. It doesn't hold the angle, and I don't think it's very secure. For cinematic, it's okay. It's actually really nice because you can adjust the angle very easily. But for freestyle, I want a sleeve style mount. Vitas Lindemann, thank you for 5 Swiss francs. Could you show the top-notch, best of the best components for a 5-inch freestyle quad if money doesn't play a role? Frame, motors, etc. I gotta tell you, man, they're like, ooh, what's the money no object flight controller? Like, yeah, it's not necessarily going to be the most expensive, is my point. Price no object. Let's see. For flight controller, like one of the most reliable flight controllers you can get today is the Foxeer Reaper. Flight controller and ESC. Racers use it a lot. I might go with a 30mm Foxeer Reaper. For motors, if I just wanted to spend money on something because it's like expensive and supposed to be real good, the AOS Supernova motors That's the kind of motor that is purported to have advantages, but I normally wouldn't buy it because it's so expensive. So AOS Supernova 2207 motor might be a choice. For video transmitter, price no object, you're probably looking at the O3. That's the main reason people stay away from the O3 is the price. If I was very concerned with latency, I might get like a high-powered analog VTX. And then for frame, I mean, I don't know. Maybe maybe the Apex, the Impulse RC Apex. That's a solid frame. It's a top tier frame, no doubt. I don't know. I bought an iFlight Eco 5-inch with DJI O3 air unit, powered up the drone with a battery with no antennas. No, the DJI VTX did not fry. Analog VTX will fry. Digital VTX are protected from such things. At least the DJI and the Walk Snail are. I don't know about HC0. Analog VTX will fry. DJI and Walk Snail are protected. You're okay. Heather, thank you for a $5 super chat. 5-inch Foxeer F722 V4 flight controller. Saved the wrong settings under video transmitter. Now it resets ports, arming disabled. Heather, this is not going to help you now, but this is why the very first thing you need to do before you start messing around with configuration is save a backup of the configuration. If you had saved a backup, then you could just restore that backup and everything would be fine. Since you didn't, now you're in a little bit of trouble. Did you build this yourself? Or is it a bind and fly? If you built it yourself, you just reset the ports back the way you know they need to be and you're good to go. Yeah. It looks like you built it yourself, so just reconfigure the receiver, the video transmitter, etc. in the ports tab, right? Otherwise, if it's a bind and fly, you go back to the manufacturer and try to get a bind and fly. You get the CLI dump from them. Thank you, Vasovamos, for 25 AED. Can you check my email? What's your email? Hamad Saif. All right, what do we got here? I'm not finding that email. Safe 965. Oh, here we go. I got you. Let's see here. What do we got? Let's see. Is there anything I could improve on or do better going forward? Oh, I see. No, I replied to you. You said I built TronCat's build series, but TronCat's build series doesn't have Betaflight configuration. Is that right? Here's TronCat's video. Air unit install, buzzer install, Betaflight. No, he has Betaflight setup right here. Betaflight setup. He walks you through the Betaflight setup. So what's the issue? The tunes and GPS settings, everything has to do. I don't know how to do that. But if you built TronCat's build, why don't you follow TronCat's tutorial for how to set up Betaflight? I guess I don't understand this question. I physically built the drone, but with the tunes and GPS settings, I didn't know how to do that. Yeah, so my answer stands. Like, I can show you my build series. If you want someone to... oh, here we go. The tunes are old and not available. Like, if you're talking about PID tune, just use the default PIDs. It'll be fine. I mean, it doesn't sound like you're at a point where you're, very concerned with flight performance. You're still just barely learning how to build and fly. Just use the defaults. I think it'll be fine. Okay. What's the highest KV for a 2207 5-inch 6S racing build? Asks Comic Sniper. The thing is, the high 6S racers, the 5-inch racers, they don't need ultra high KV because they're seldom at full throttle anyway. Like most racers, if they were to actually go to full throttle, they would just kill their battery, or they wouldn't have the control to do it. So there are some racers who are very good, who are regularly hitting full throttle and need more KV. Those guys are running about 2100-ish KV, 21 to 2200 KV on 6S. Most people don't have the skill and reflexes to actually use that. And for most racers, a lower KV, like maybe 1900 KV at most, is probably the right choice. Running at higher KV will just give you less throttle resolution and more ability to blow out corners and won't make your laps faster. But I would say 2100 to 2200 KV is the absolute ceiling of what we see real racers using in 5-inch racing. Superfly says, I'm hearing the G3 and the O3 will eventually work together, but I can't find any documents saying that. Where's that info from? Is it reliable? No, it's not reliable. As I have said, every time this topic comes up, I've been very careful to say something along the lines of, we assume that backwards compatibility will happen because in every previous generation, eventually backwards compatibility happened. We assume that it will happen eventually, but we don't know when, and you should not make a buying decision based on the desire for that to happen. That's been my message from the beginning very clearly. So if you've got anybody who is telling you definitively that it's going to happen, well, they need to sort it with proof because I haven't seen any.
What you're probably hearing for launch, and then it got launched and it got patched out, and there's not been patched back in. So it is possible. We know the software exists. We do not know it will ever be put into the goggles. That's basically where we're at.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, there was somebody on Facebook. Maybe it was you. And he was like, oh, I'm so mad. I bought the G3 on the promise that I would get backwards compatibility, and now it's 4 months later and I don't have it. I've been misled. And I was like, you played yourself. No one promised you that would happen. And he showed a Pyrodrone product link, a Pyrodrone product page where it said O3 compatibility coming soon. And I'm like, well, that's between you and Pyrodrone. I don't personally think Pyro should have put that there because, like, the definition of coming soon, like, is that 4 months? Is it 6 months? You just don't know. Maybe, like, coming eventually. But, like, it's a huge mistake to buy anything today based on the belief of what the vendor will do with it in the future. It is a huge mistake. I cannot harp on this message hard enough. When you bought the Walk Snail Goggles X, they promised they were going to do an app and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and it hasn't happened. And you shouldn't, and maybe it will happen. I don't know. Buy something based on what it can do today, and if it doesn't do what you need today, don't buy it. That's my opinion. Captain Bry, thank you for a $5 super chat. Clearest error message the ELRS Lua can give if no crossfire module enabled in Edge TX. I got no crossfire module enabled in model settings. That's good. Yeah. I would capitalize model settings so it's a little bit clearer. Yeah.
Okay, I understand it sounds clear. Nobody's going to know what that means. So, okay. Like, you have to know about a radio to know what that means. It needs to say internal, external RF. Like, you know what I mean? You
Could
need a name.
Could be internal.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, both. It needs to say, like, you know...
Yeah, but the script doesn't know whether the module is internal or external.
I'm not saying it has to say either. I'm saying it has to say both. I'm saying it should tell you. Like, because you need to know what to look for in the menu, or they're just not going to find it. You're going to say, no CRS module enabled in model settings, and they're going to go, what is it? What in model settings? And then you scroll down, and like, I don't know what that is. So it needs to be, like, internal, external,
Do
RF.
we have the whole screen to show the message? How much text do we have, Captain Bry? Could it be, you know...
I just know a user will go, I don't know what that means. Tell me what that means to me.
But they already don't know what it means when the script doesn't load. So I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to take a step in the right direction, right? Not much, but he says is a giant font. Yeah. What if it just said, go to model settings, enable CRSF for internal/external module?
Yeah, I think you need that
something
internal,
like that.
External RF, like the same words they're going to see. So if they come to you, at least you know, like in the message, they saw model settings and internal, external RF. So they could parse it out without knowing anything else by scrolling down the menu and finding it, right?
There's a distinction I make, Blunty, I'll bet you do this too, because you do a lot of troubleshooting and tech support. There's a distinction I make between diagnosing the problem and directing the user to how to fix the problem. Like if I say, oh, your receiver isn't working. Great. I've diagnosed the problem. Or if I say, oh, your ports tab is set up incorrectly. That's a diagnosis. None of that actually helps the user fix the problem unless they already kind of know what they're doing. So I always try and follow a diagnosis with an instruction. I would say, go to the ports tab, find the UART number that your receiver is on, and enable serial RX there. Now, I realize if we only have like one line of text, we can't, but rather than giving an error message that's a diagnosis, my goal would probably be to direct them for how to fix the problem as best I could in the space available. But that's my take. I know that's not how error messages usually work. Hendrik Dirk de Kaitzer, thank you for €6. I'm sure I've mispronounced your name. I don't see a question from you, so we're going to just call it a donation, and thank you for your donation. Jesus Barba, thank you for $5. I want to build my first drone. I'd like the Avata for the good camera, but I want to build one myself. Is there a build with an HD camera like the Avata? Yes, you can build an FPV drone with the O3 air unit. It's the exact same air unit that's in the Avata. Holland Dronegenester, thank you for 119 Norwegian kroner. My Nazgul starts to shake after a motor change to AOS Supernova. Yeah, your PIDs were too high. I turned down the master multiplier and it flies good without a GoPro. How to fix the shaking with the GoPro. So you've got different motors with different KV and now the PIDs aren't right. I do agree that turning down the master multiplier is the right thing to do. Usually adding weight will fix the shaking and removing weight will make the shaking worse. So if it's smooth without the GoPro, I would think it would be smooth with the GoPro. But the bottom line is I do think reducing the master multiplier is the right idea. All right, that brings us to the end of the super chats, and we're back to the regular chats, regular non-super chats. Still very valuable chats, though. Did you end up getting FRIA status? Yes, I did get FRIA status. That doesn't really matter from the perspective of my YouTube channel because FRIAs only really matter if you're a recreational flyer and everything I do is commercial. The main reason you haven't seen any outside flying vids from me is I just haven't felt like posting that lately. That's all. Like I haven't just posted a pure freestyle vid in like forever. And part of it is that I just, the bar has been raised so much for like way back when my channel got started, like I was never the best FPV pilot, freestyle pilot, but my videos were, I thought they were worth posting. I thought they were worth watching. They got some views. Nowadays, I just look at everybody else who's so much better than me, and I'm like, I don't know why I would post freestyle videos. I think freestyle videos on YouTube aren't really that interesting anyway. Like, the place where I watch freestyle is mostly on the 30-second to 60-second reel content, like Facebook Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, etc. The places where you're like, oh, that was a great trick, nice, and then 45 seconds later you're done. Not a lot of people want to watch like a 3-minute freestyle video. So let's see here. Hendrik asks, this must be the super chat question from Hendrik. Joshua, a while ago you did a video about GPS modules and interference. I see a lot of manufacturers putting a GPS mount on the back side of the model. Which is most of the time under the VTX antennas. That's fine. Having the GPS near the VTX antennas isn't really a problem, as long as it's spaced out a little bit. I've got a 7-inch build where the GPS is maybe 2 inches back, but still under the antennas, and I'll get 20, 25 sats, no problem. So that's absolutely fine. It's when it's too close to the body and too close to the battery lead, that's when it creates an issue, in my opinion. Sebastian bought the QAVS2. I've done the smoke test many times, and if I put red on red, I don't get any beep. When I switch, I do. Remember that if you have a short beep that ends, that's the capacitor charging up, and you do not have a short circuit, everything is fine. I think probably you're going to be okay. But I obviously can't guarantee it. People wondering about my shirt. This is one of the very first super deluxe shirts ever made. Yes, it is. And you can see it is laundry worn, and yet still, when I roll out of bed on a Sunday morning, I'll throw it on and then leave it on for a live stream. Chalmelian asks, I just got into FPV and I got a Pavo Pico. What drone do you recommend between the Mobula 8, Gep RC20, or the Pavo 2.0? I would take the Gep RC20. Mobula 8 is solid too, and I think a little lighter than the Gep RC20. The Pavo 2.0 would be my last choice. Hey, Joshua, is it okay to use a drone VTX set and flight controller to an FPV car? Absolutely. That can be really fun, actually.
One thing to think about is just heat.
Yeah, well, you might need a fan. So, like, I have a thing I built a little while back. Oh, this one is broken. But it's a little cradle that holds the VTX and the camera, and has a little fan that I got on top of it, and so it helps keep the VTX cool. Some VTX, you should just buy, for analog, you should just buy a VTX that already has the fan built in. There's plenty of them. Tank, as usual, a Synolog 3.5 is not a good choice for cinematic mountain surfing. A 3.5 inch will be blown around by the wind, and, sorry, got my chair centered up, and it will not have the flight time and endurance to do mountain surfing. For mountain surfing, I would say minimum 7 inch. You could just like barely get to the top of a mountain and maybe back down again on a 5 inch, but 7 inch or 10 inch is really the place to be if you're serious about that. What's the best analog goggles for a beginner that is not breaking the bank? Eachine EV800DM or Fat Shark Echo are good choices at about $100. The question is, should I just go with Goggles X from the beginning? That's a budgetary question. If you can't afford it, you probably will just stick with digital for the rest of your FPV career. Spikester asks, does BL-Heli32 not support current sense via ESC telemetry? I can't get it to work on the FETTIC FC. It always reports 0. So here's the thing, Spikester. BL-Heli32 supports it, but many ESCs do not. Many ESCs do not. The reason for that is that for the ESC to support current sense, BL-Heli32 current sense, they need 4 separate shunt resistors, one for each ESC, and that takes up a lot of space on the board, and manufacturers did that for a little while and then stopped, and now no one does it. So nowadays, basically no ESC is going to report current via BL-Heli telemetry. What they'll do is they'll have a single large shunt resistor for the entire ESC, and they'll do analog current sense. And that's how they'll get current sense into the flight controller. So you're basically not going to be able to do it with that ESC because the designer of the ESC didn't implement it. Brandon Bean says you can easily canyon surf with a 5-inch. It just takes a little more time. Mind you, I mean a light 5-inch. A freestyle 5-inch wouldn't fly long enough. That's fine. I'll allow it. Most people, when they say I want a 5-inch, they're talking about a typical freestyle 5-inch. If you design a lightweight 5-inch specifically for endurance flying, like the HDLRC Recon 5, it comes to mind, you could mountain surf with that, but you're still going to have problems with the wind, and I think the 7-inch is going to do better in the wind. So, yeah. Are there bind and flies that I can just use my DJI controller without adding wires? Asks FPV Explorer. Yes, there are. Any bind and fly that has the O3 air unit, and if you order it with no receiver installed, it should come wired for the DJI controller. It may not be actually configured in the ports tab. You may need to go in and configure it. And there are a few cases where for some reason they don't put those extra 2 wires in, and you would have to get a new wire harness. But any bind and fly that has the O3 air unit, probably you can use the DJI RC controller with it. Probably.
Also, don't be afraid to just ask the manufacturer before you order.
What a concept.
And say, hey, I'm going to order your plug and play or bind and fly version without a receiver. Can you make it hooked up like that, or does it come like that? That sort of thing.
Yeah, good point. Let's see here. Has anyone hooked up telemetry to a 6 degree of freedom flight sim that mirrors your quad's movements like you're in the cockpit? Not that I know of. That would be crazy. You would just get spun around like ridiculous. Do you have a recommendation for a digital toothpick? Yes. One of my favorite little digital quads is is it going to be under Tiny Drone? One of my favorite little quads is the Flywoo Firefly. The 1S version is not so good on the digital VTXs. I think my favorite is the 2S Nano Baby 20. Let's see. Where's the rest of them? Why is there a Walk Snail and an HD0? But no DJI. It used to exist. That's weird. Analog. There, DJI Vista, Naked Vista. Yeah, walks. Okay, so it's not available with the O3. That's interesting. This is a really fun little 2S 2-inch, which is available with all of the except the O3. All of the digital video systems, though, and analog, if you're into that. Let's see. The Emax Tiny Hawk. There's a digital version of the Tiny Hawk. What's the digital Tiny Hawk? It comes with the 03, I think. Drones. Oh my god. Nano Hawk. It's the Nano Hawk. Is that it? No, that's a 3-inch 1S with... No. Hang on. The Baby Hawk 03. Is that it? There you go. This is nice and probably well, is it a toothpick? This arguably might not be a toothpick. It's 3.5 inches, but it might scratch that itch. It might be close enough to be what you want and has a full DJI 03 Air unit in it. I probably, like, if you, like, said, you know, right now, is this a toothpick? I'd say no. But that's pretty good. What's the Gep RC? Not the Smart 3.5. I feel like Gep RC has something in this category. Ooh, that's definitely not the Dolphin is absolutely not a toothpick. I really wish the Smart 3.5 still existed, but it isn't. It doesn't. What a freaking great deal. $129. I miss those days. $129. So good. The Dolphin, no. Oh, the Dolphin. A 4-inch toothpick. No. Dolphin HD. Oh, this was the money right here. Oh, we take a trip back in time to when people built tall stacks. Anyway. Sadly, all obsolete. Crux 3.5. What about the Crux? Happy Model Crux 3.5. Does it come with a digital? It does. Oh, here you go. This is the one. Happy Model Crux 3.5 HD. That's a compelling. That's compelling. That's analog. Where's the digital? Oh, yeah. That's the money right there. That's the money right there. $279. Bingo! There you go. How about that one? Okay. We got a question here from Hand Shoes and Horse Grenades who says, I'm looking to get started going with the Gep RC Mark V goggles Integra and Radiomaster Boxer. Is it really $1,600 to $1,800 to get started in FPV? I mean, it doesn't have to be quite that much, but yeah. So bear in mind, you're going with the goggles Integra, which is one of the, you know, more expensive digital systems. What do they go for? Actually, God forbid. The goggles Integra may not be as we're living in a crazy world. Goggles Integra are $350. Is that for real? Jesus Christ. Blunty, what is happening? I can get a set of DJI goggles for cheaper than almost any analog goggle. What's going on? Like any analog goggle is going to be $500.
Yeah, and you could get the Dominators for $380 still, right? I think. So, yeah, it's a weird world. I agree.
$380 for the Dominators. What the hell? Well, I know why the Dominators are $380. It's because Fat Shark made way too many of them, and now that the Goggles X are out, the Dominator's writing is on the wall. And so I think that Fat Shark is still, you know, trying to move their original manufacturing run. That's my theory. And they're scared. Well, I don't know if it's their original manufacturing run. My point is that when the Goggles X came out, I think Fat Shark had stock of the Dominators and was like, well, clearly these are on their way out. We need to mark them down. So that's what's going on here. This is a last-gen product being marked down. So fine. But this is not even really, I mean, technically it's a last-gen product because the G3 is out, but not really.
I mean, I think it's the same reason you're saying. It's just, yeah, it's pretty crazy how cheap they are.
Yeah. Like, unfortunately, you're going to spend a lot more on video transmitters over the life of the goggles than you will on goggles. So, like, there's no argument that DJI is cheaper than analog, but you can get top of the line. I know the G2 is technically the top of the line, but you don't give up that much compared to the Integra, and many people like the Integra better. You can get a really good digital goggle for $350. You can't get analog. You can't get an analog goggle. Like, you can get some used goggles, maybe close to that price. That's insane. Anyway, going back to the question, is that really how much it costs? I mean, to some degree, yes. Gepper C Mark V, you're going to spend $600, $500, $600 because you're getting the 03 version. You could save maybe $200 if you got analog. Goggles, $350. You're not actually going to save very much there. Boxer, $100. Like, I'm actually not sure how you're getting to $1,600 to $1,800. Like, you got maybe $600 for the drone, $350 for the goggles. Let's say you got the Boxer. Like, what's the highest end Boxer? The AGO1 Boxer is I don't want the gimbals. I want the Boxer with the gimbals. The Boxer Max. There you go. Boxer Max. $300 for the Boxer Max. Jeez. Oh, that's Amazon pricing. Boxer Max, $259, $260. Okay, $260. We're at $1,200 just for the drone, the goggles, and the controller. But that's because you're buying like the best. So like you could get that down to like $800 by compromising some. You know, $1,200. Yeah, that's how much it costs. Yeah, you did the math. Oh, you're also another mistake you're making if you're trying to save money is you're starting with a 5-inch. So you could spend a lot less going with like a 3.5-inch or smaller and not going with digital. But to get into a 5-inch digital with top of the line gear, that's the price. How do you feel about modding the walk snail? Modding the walk snail goggles or the Integra, I've seen the same mod done for the Integra. Modding them with X-Air antennas absolutely does give better range than the stock antennas because they're good quality directional antennas. As long as you're pointed at the quad, you're going to get better range. Is it worth it? That just depends. I mean, obviously, better antennas are one of the best ways to improve your experience. It's just a question of whether it's worth the hassle for you. But yeah. How many batteries should a noob plan to buy? 5, 10, 20? I think that like 4 batteries would be my minimum for a noob. With 4 batteries, a lot of people will find that that's a good amount of flying, especially in the beginning. And if you have charging available at your flight location, whether that's, you know, no matter how you're getting that power, there's various ways you could be getting that power. But if you could charge at your flight location, then 4 batteries is enough to keep you flying pretty much indefinitely. Because you're not just going to be fly a pack, set, land, plug in a new pack, fly a pack, land, plug in a new pack, fly. If you're literally just rolling packs, then you need like 10 or 15 packs to just never stop flying. But you're going to land, you're going to unplug, you're going to screw around, somebody else is going to fly, etc. Like 4 packs is a nice solid number for a beginner who isn't going to want to spend too much money. I think maybe 10 packs is like the most a beginner should think about buying. That's plenty, and you'll have some spares for when you kill them. So that's what I would say. Is there a better thread locker for T-mounts? Mine keep coming loose even with the blue stuff. Okay. First of all, you said T-mount. T-mount means you're talking about props. Never thread lock your props. Never thread lock your props. Most of the plastic that props are made of, the thread locker will make the plastic brittle and the prop will disintegrate. Never thread lock props. If your T-mount props are coming loose, it feels like you're not tightening them correctly. Like, I've literally never had that happen. You know? Like, tighten them down correctly. Also, generally, you want 7mm screws, which I bought. Like, they usually come with 8mm, and to me, those are long enough that I'm always a little worried about screwing into the motor bell. Or they come with 6mm, and to me, those don't bite the threads quite enough, and they can strip the threads out. So I would buy a bag of 100 M2 by 7mm, use those, and tighten them down correctly. You don't need to over tighten them, but they should be snug enough that they don't work out loose. David Cagle. On my first hover test, the copter jumped 50 centimeters upwards and turned 180 degrees and fell back to the ground. You have one of 4 things wrong. Your flight controller alignment is wrong, your motor mapping is wrong, you have a motor spinning the wrong direction, or you installed the props wrong. It's one of those 4 things always. Okay? You've got a configuration issue. And I can't, like on a live stream, take you through the detailed troubleshoot of all of those things, but it's one of those 4 things. Good advice from Half Fast. If you've got T-mount props, you do need to go recheck your screws periodically. Like if you're crashing and banging around, the screws may work loose. So. What about these type of hubs? Can you Loctite these? No. No. Nope. Definitely that will disintegrate. So, I've talked to people who fly airplanes, and they said, "What are you talking about? I Loctite my prop nut all the time, and I have no problem." And I'm gonna guess that, like, do you see, like, visually this looks like a different kind of plastic? I don't know. I don't know what kind of plastic it is. But, like, there was a guy who flies airplanes, and he was like, we Loctite our props all the time. And I was like, well, you must have a different kind of plastic. Thank you. So I'm going to guess that airplane props are a different kind of plastic. And I don't know what kind it is. This kind of plastic, people seem to Loctite and get away with it. But this kind of plastic that we use on multi-rotor props, that just disintegrates. It literally, they just crumble like to dust. All right, we got another block of super chats we're going to take care of. If you want to get your question answered promptly, now's the time to leave a super chat. What do you think of the SpeedyBee Mario 5 Pro frame for a first build? Thank you, Andy, for a $5 super chat. Andy, I built out a SpeedyBee Mario. I think it's a good frame. It has some little quirks to its build that if you're starting out from scratch, you should like research how SpeedyBee wants you to build it. Because those little quirks got in my way when I just tried to build it the way that I usually do. I found it a little frustrating. But it's a solid frame. It's not too expensive. It's got a lot of accessories. It's good looking. I like it. I think it's a fine choice. Just want to say thanks for all that you and Blunty do for the community. Thank you, Cameron Pratt, for a $5 super chat. For the QAV-S2 drone, what would I do for longer flight time? Thank you, Lieutenant, for a $5 super chat. Lieutenant, if you want longer flight time, one of the things to do is to reduce weight. Well, you don't have a lot of options there. With this, once you're locked into a specific drone build, you don't have a ton of options to reduce weight. Like you really need to think about cutting weight at the time that you design the build and choose things like frame, motor, etc. If you got a ton of 3D prints, you could remove some of the 3D prints and cut some weight, but you're not going to make a drastic difference in the weight. The next thing you can do is you can just be gentle on the throttle. For longer flight times, being gentle on the throttle will take you a long way. Now, you're not going to go very fast and you're not going to go very, very fun and speedy, but that will extend the flight time. The next thing you can do is you can get a larger battery. And in fact, some people are going to lithium ion cells. Now, you may be thinking lithium ion cells are no good for like 5-inch freestyle drones because they don't have the C rating. But there are some companies, like this company is Upgrade Energy. Upgrade Energy makes very good lithium ion packs. Basically, they go out and they find these new high discharge lithium ion cells, like the Moly cell. Moly cell has a bunch of different cells, but it's a specific model of cell. But these cells are rated for like 50 amps, right? So if we were to get like this right here is a 6S 2P, I believe. 6S 2P. And it's rated for, that's not as much as I would have hoped. I thought being a 2P, it was going to get me 60 amps. So it's rated for 30 amps or a burst current of 50 amps for 10 seconds. Now that's like, for a freestyle drone, that's nothing, right? But you could cruise a 5-inch under 30 amps, and you're going to get like 3 times as much flight time compared to like a typical, 1300, 1500 LiPo. Now it's a $120 battery, but it'll give you more flight time for sure. Oh, it's 6S1P. I'm sorry, it's 6S1P. Of course it is. That's why it's only 50 amps. How much? What about this one? 6S. Is this a 6S2P? There you go. Here's a 6S2P. No, still only rated for 55 amps. Wonder why. P45B. Maybe it's heat limited. I don't know. Well, that's interesting. I don't know. But you could go a direction like this, okay? And you'll get longer flight times at the expense of power. You can't get something for nothing, though. You're always going to have to make a trade-off. Coach T. Joshua, thank you for a $5 super chat. Last week's question via antenna upgrade for the Integra.
That's the one you talked about earlier.
Yeah. Oh, I got that one already. Thank you for the super chat. We did answer that one. Yes, I do think it's a big enough difference. It's just a question of whether you feel comfortable opening your goggles to do the modification. Darwin FPV Tiny Ape DJI O3 2.5 inch 3S. Thoughts? What are my thoughts? That's interesting. Oh, we got the vertical mount of the O3. I don't know. I'd have to see it fly, man. This guy right here is a winner. This is a really fun form factor. It's like, and at the price, $175, it's worth the price. I don't know. I'd have to see how this flies. It's clever what they've done to try to, like, fit it into the wheelbase. But I don't know what it's done to the CG and the handling characteristics. When the FPV camera is significantly higher than the prop line, then when you roll, it kind of swings around in a way that a lot of people, they don't necessarily know why, but they think it makes the quad fly better. Generally, there has been work to bring the camera down to the prop line historically, and that tends to make people like the way the quad flies better. I wouldn't immediately like fall in love with this. I'd want to test it out. I'm a little skeptical about it. Dirtman, thank you for a $10 super chat. I'm looking into a 75mm, but I don't know what charger to get for it. Tattoo 450 7.6 volt high voltage 2S1P with XT30. Not a problem. What's that charger? I have it right here. I have it literally right here. Literally. You want the V-Fly Tooth Store. It is a 4-channel 2S charger with XT30. Does it? Does it have XT30s? Shut up. Oh my God. Really? Does it not have XT30s? It doesn't. Holy shit. Oh, it doesn't need them because it charges off the balance connector. Yeah. Okay. Wow, I was like really concerned there for a minute. So, V-Fly Tooth Store. It's a 2S 4-channel charger. Boom, just plug into the balance connector and good to go. This is, if you got a bunch of 2S batteries, a great charger. That's the one to get. Is 2-antenna Gemini mode worth it with a 5-inch? Thank you for $10. Nether Poisson. Gemini mode provides increased link quality at the margins. So if your LQ is already as good as you want it to be, and you tend to fly close in, then Gemini is not really got a point. When you find that if you're regularly flying and you find that your LQ is kind of dropping below, say, 90, if you're regularly in the 80s or below and you're at the edge of your range, then Gemini will improve that a little bit. But it's not going to like double your range. It's going to give more link stability at the edge of range and increase your range slightly. But it's mostly about link stability, not necessarily about just more range. Jesus Barba. Excuse me. Thank you for a $5 super chat. Is it okay to use Radio Master Pocket on a drone with O3? Yeah, absolutely. You just need a Radio Master, you need an Express LRS receiver on the drone, but that's completely independent of what video system you're using. So you're good to go there. What goggles should I use with that drone? For the O3, I think most people these days would pick the Integra goggles. Thank you for a $10 super chat. Lotus, I am having issues connecting my flight controller to Betaflight on my laptop. I connect to my laptop and it bricks the flight controller until I run Impulse RC Fixer on the desktop. What? So then can you... Oh, wow. I don't know what's going on there.
I'll just say, like, if like, right, there's not enough information here to actually know what you mean. Because, like, if you connect to the laptop and then you hit flash and then nothing happens and you can't get back in the flight controller, that's because the flight controller is in DFU mode because you put it in there from hitting the flash button. So you unplug it and plug it back in, and then it would work again, right? And having used Impulse RC driver fixers, because maybe there's like one of the common issues is I've seen lately is using like the specific Brandon will remember what it's called, but the specific like steering wheel and different joystick and stuff, like it replaces the STM bootloader driver every time, and you have to use the Impulse every time. There's different weird driver stuff that can happen. And it can make it a one-off situation, but typically unplugging it would un-DFU it and it would work as normal, and then you just plug it back in to try it again. I'm not sure why. Yeah, we just need more information. I think this is one of those email JB things, I think. Yeah. Because we would want to know, like, what happens when you do what, and then we can kind of zone in. Yeah, like if you can't flash it, then it might be because something's soldered on a UART. If you can't access it at all, then maybe there's something wrong with your configurator or something. It's a little confusing. Yeah. Like, we need more information, Lotus. If we wait a second, Lotus will give us the information in Discord. Okay. Yeah. Lotus, let's talk about it. Email me or DM me on Discord. We'll go back and forth. But for like stuff that requires a lot of back and forth troubleshooting, I think it's better if we do it offline rather than like waiting to go back and go around and around, That's a weird one. What you're describing kind of is weird, though. I'll say that.
Corey Marinello, thank you for a $5 super chat. Walk Snail, I bought them Analog RX. Suggest, and did they make a mount option yet? How about the new Avatar GT? Corey, you get the award on this live stream for cramming the most questions into a single super chat. You want a suggestion for an analog receiver for your Walk Snail Goggles X. SpeedyBee has a new one. TBS Fusion, very, very good. Immersion RC Rapid Fire, very good. Did they make a mounting option yet? I don't think there's an official one, but there's some 3D printed ones that seem decent. How about that new Avatar GT? Doesn't exist yet. Until it actually is in people's hands, we can't say. It's supposed to have more output power, so, I mean, more output power is good, right? JC Cantrell has a super chat. JC says, JB, I've outgrown many great digital quads I flew in 2022 and 2023, as well as various transmitters and DJI goggles. My wife would like me to sell some of these before I might. Can you recommend a used FPV marketplace with a good reputation? JC, any online marketplace has its pitfalls, so I will show you some online marketplaces. JC, the first thing I would have you do, though, buddy, is you're already my patron and you're already on the Discord server. On my Discord server, there is a buy-sell trade forum right here. Buy-sell trade. Nope, sorry. Marketplace US. That's where you want to be. So, JC, go to Marketplace US and create posts here on my Discord server, and at least the people you're selling to, like obviously, I like to think that because they're my patrons, they're better than average people, and they're not going to scam you or cheat you or something. I guess that's not a guarantee. But yeah, I the first thing I would have you do is try and sell them to other patrons and, spread that love around. Right? Yeah. Maybe you didn't know that was there, but now you do. Hell yeah. Now I have to find the fucking live stream chat again. There we go. Is it possible to update the SpeedyBee analog module on Mac? The apps don't seem to allow it. I guess not. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's pretty common. That a vendor will only make a Windows app. There you go. If I ran macOS as my daily driver, I would absolutely be running some kind of a Windows emulator or a Windows dual boot. I think there's a program called Parallels. I would absolutely have a Windows OS available to me for all the times when a manufacturer doesn't give a Mac app or there's some bug or something. Thank you, Pulek, for 200 Czech Koruna. I built a 6-inch with 2306.5, 1880 kV. At full power on 6S, the OSD says 80 amps is used, which should be 20 amps per motor. And then I switched to a 50 amp ESC. Will it work fine? Here's the thing. Pulek, that 60 amp ESC is 60 amps per channel. But the OSD's 80 amps is the whole quadcopter. So that's only, as you say, 20 amps per motor. So if you're actually pulling 20 amps per motor, then either a 50 or 60 amp ESC is more than enough. But you should keep in mind that the ESC amp ratings are very sort of vague, and like the difference between a 50 amp from one manufacturer and a 60 amp from another manufacturer is almost meaningless. You're probably okay though. Rich McRae Reed, thank you for a $2 super chat. I don't see any question from you, Rich. So I guess it's a donation, and thank you for the donation. All right, well, we got a few more minutes to get questions in before we wrap up for the day. Do the DJI V2 goggles support analog VTXs? No, but yes. The V2 goggles have an AV input that can be wired to an analog receiver module. So they don't support it natively, but you can jury rig it, and some people find that to be acceptable. Sunshine, in a charger, the discharge program is for killing the battery, not for storing it. Use the storage program to store it. That's why they call it the storage program. Maybe I misunderstood your question. Christopher Conkrite asks, a motor with the same KV but a larger body like 1404 or 2004. If it's the same KV, what's the difference? The larger motor will generate more torque, is the short answer. Generally, it will be more responsive, although that's not always a given depending on the dimensions of the motor. It will also probably pull more current, although again, that's not a given. Oh, Sunshine is asking. No, I don't know what Sunshine's asking. Never mind. I thought I knew.
Sunshine was replying to another person, just seeing what they meant. But Chilla asked, "Is it okay to discharge a lipo, like kill a lipo with the Hoda, or is it dangerous to do that?"
You can, but generally chargers, the discharge program doesn't take it down to 3.0 volts. Very few chargers will have like a kill program where it takes it down to 0 volts. Almost none of them do that. I've seen it, but I don't remember where, and it's very rare. So if you want to kill a battery, I think the best way to do it is to drop it in a bucket of salt water. I know that there's a lot of argument about this. I've tested this before. You dunk the battery in a bucket of salt water, and a few hours later, it's essentially dead. The counter argument is that it corrodes the wires to the point where current stops flowing and it doesn't fully discharge it. But I've done this with a battery before, and after a day in a bucket of salt water, I cut the terminals off and tested the bare wires, and it was just at 0 volts. It was dead, dead, dead. So I think that's an effective way of killing batteries, and it's relatively safe compared to all the other ways. The only danger with the saltwater bucket method is that the process of discharging the battery generates small amounts of chlorine and hydrogen gas. Now, if you know about chemistry, you know that breathing chlorine gas is extremely bad for humans. It will make you very sick and have to go to the hospital with lung damage. And you know that hydrogen gas is flammable. So this would only matter if you were discharging the battery in an enclosed space. The amount of hydrogen and carbon gas or chlorine gas generated is large enough to be dangerous if concentrated and not allowed to disperse. So if you do the salt bucket method, do it outside on your porch. Do it somewhere outside your house, just anywhere where there's a little bit of airflow, and you'll be fine. If you were to do it in an enclosed space, you could create a safety issue. So don't do that.
Can I mention one more thing?
Yeah.
So JP Spin FPV in chat mentioned, and obviously we haven't verified because we didn't know, or I didn't know. He says that there are some issues with modules working with the Avatar goggles over the analog to avian connection. So he says right now he thinks that SpeedyB and Rapid Fire TBS seems to be a solid choice and works. And that was I'll just say that was the original case on the DJI goggles when they were having the blackout issues as well. I remember that was kind of a thing. So I'm not sure if that's still a problem. People are saying in chat it is still a problem. They're trying to work it out with the next board. But just so you know, it may not be that any analog module you order for the Walksnail Avatar.
So it sounds like the Fusion is the safe choice?
Yeah, I would do some independent research in groups that are also running these goggles with an analog module. That would be my suggestion.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, the Walksnail analog input always seemed a little half-baked to me, so I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised to hear there's some issues. Yeah. We got just about 10 minutes left for questions. If I don't get to your question, please don't take it personally. Don't get your feelings hurt. Just email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. I take all questions via email. I do my best to answer them. I prioritize questions from patrons because it's only fair if they get to the front of the line since they pay money. It's not expensive to become a patron. It's only $2 a month. I should actually raise that. Inflation, Blunty. $2 a month is only $1 from 4 years ago. Jeez. Anyway, that's not the point. It's only $2 a month. Get in before the price goes up. But I answer everybody's questions, whether you're a patron or not. Doesn't matter. I don't even check, to be honest with you. So if I don't get to you on the live stream, and let's face it, you can't answer all the questions on the live stream, especially not how I ramble. Just email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. I'd love to have you get in my inbox. Deep FPV, I got to get you in here. We got 1,000 rupees. I'm thinking of a drone where we can load single 18650 or 21700 cells, which form a 4S pack with internal circuitry, but we will need some protection circuit. Yeah, I got to tell you, Deep FPV, I don't think that's a good approach. There have been drones where you load a single cell or even 2 cells. It's a gimmick. It's cute, but it's a little bit of a gimmick. Those cells don't provide enough performance generally, and the wiring and the issue with you crash and the cells fall out. It's much better just to have a pre-made battery pack with an XT60. The idea with protection circuit from reverse polarity and stuff, that's all the reasons why we don't do that. So you really have to need that advantage, and I just don't think it's worth it compared to the risks. David Pujotti asks, can a faulty LiPo short out my drone? I recently bought new LiPos at a suspicious discount. With one specifically, I got weird gyro issues, and it blew the ESC and the FC shorted with just that one. I mean, it's possible, I guess. If it was wired, the most common defect that we see is it's wired backwards from the factory, but that should cause it to blow immediately upon plugging in. It shouldn't work at all. The 2-inch Cinewhoop I made needs 70% throttle to hover. Would going from 1.5-inch to 3.5-inch pitch props fix this? No. Like, I don't know for sure, man, but if you're hovering at 70%, I don't think you're going to, like, double the amount of thrust you get by going to a different pitch prop. That's not going to happen. You have fundamentally misspec'd some aspect of this build. What's up, bro?
I'm just gonna say the thing. There is a non-zero chance that you've put the props on upside down.
Yeah.
I just need to say that.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you put the props on upside down, they make like roughly half or maybe less the
like
appropriate amount of thrust.
But
it's a lot less.
Yeah.
So check that you haven't put your props on upside down. That's suspicious that you're that far off. Like, you would have had to radically get the kV of the motor wrong to be able to do this. Aaron Ciotti is in the stream. Ciotti's going to start posting a link to his live stream, which will begin after my live stream ends in just about 5 minutes. Ciotti, if you guys want to keep the streaming going on a Sunday afternoon, you guys can head on over there once I get off the air. Ciotti is going to be doing 75mm walk snail 1S versus 2S again. Obviously, 2S is better because it's more, right, Ciotti? Can I show the OSD on my DJI V2 goggles when I share screen with DJI Fly? I don't know the answer to that. If it's the O3 Air unit, the answer is yes. If it's the Vista Air unit with WTFOS, I don't know the answer.
I thought it was based on the goggles. Isn't it that the goggles V2 don't draw the OSD? Like, it's drawn on the goggle side, and the goggles 2 draw it on the picture side, and then it's drawn in. You know, isn't there something like that? That was my memory.
I don't think so. I think the goggles always draw it. The V2 goggles don't have the horsepower to like record it. I know that.
Yeah, doesn't one of them... Well, what I mean is it's not the horsepower, right? It's that the goggles 2 render it, and then it records the actual screen instead of recording the... So my thought process was that for the same reason that goggles 2 shows the OSD on the Fly app, but the V2 doesn't. But that may be wrong.
I see what you're getting at. That it would pass the raw feed out to the USB without re-encoding it to show the OSD. I honestly don't know. Because I don't use. I would say. Oh, well, I guess then it wouldn't be able to do it for the O3 either, would it? Is your point? I see what you're getting at.
That was where I was coming. I didn't know if it was by VTX or by goggle.
No, I see your point. Well, I don't want to just rig up my Cosmos streamer right now and test it with 3 minutes left in the stream. I don't know the answer. On my Cosmos streamer, no, I wasn't. See, that's the thing. I don't even have my V2 goggles anymore. I gave them to Fabio. Fabio was like, hey, can you recommend a drone for me to buy? I want to get into flying FPV drones, you know. He edits all my videos, and he's like, you know what, I'll fucking get a drone. And I was like, don't buy a drone. I sent him a GepRC Cinelog. I sent him my V2 goggles, and I sent him a DJI controller so he could start. So I don't even have my V2s anymore. I can't even test it.
Wes says it does not when he tested it with either VTX.
Well, there you go. I mean, if anybody would know, it's Wes. It's Wes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wes, for that. Deep FPV, thanks for another 1,000 rupees. Deep FPV, I removed a comment of someone who was saying negative things about your currency. I don't appreciate that. All currencies are welcome here. Thank you for your donation. All donations are appreciated, regardless of the exchange rate to USD. And I wanted you to know I saw that comment and I didn't appreciate it. So, FYI. All right, we are coming to the end of the stream. Again, if you want to email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. With your questions. If I didn't get to your questions, I'll be happy to. Thank you, everybody, for coming out on a Sunday afternoon. And I will see you tomorrow. No. We are not going to have a stream tomorrow, are we, Blunty? Because I have a special... I'll tell you what it is. There is a pickup D&D game at a local gaming store. And I'm going to take my son, and if I can find babysitting, I'm going to take my wife, and the whole family is going to go play D&D in the evening. And that's like, I was like, I'll cancel my live stream for that. So we're going to change the live stream this week to, did we say Wednesday, right, Plenty?
Wednesday at the normal time as a Monday stream, but on a Wednesday.
As always, you can just go to my YouTube channel and look at the live stream schedule there. It is scheduled now. We will be here Wednesday at 8 p.m., not Monday. And I will see you there. All right. All right, everybody. That's going to do it. Siati, have a great stream. I'm going to leave 1 minute early, Siati, just for you, instead of running late like I usually do. I'm out.